We are now joined by our NASCAR Sprint Cup Series points leader, Brad Keselowski, driver of the number 2 Miller Lite Dodge. You have 2 wins here at Talladega, one coming in the spring. Talk a little bit about being the points leader and coming into this weekend.
Sure. This is a fancy microphone for Talladega. I think this has been a good track for me in the past, and glad to be back here and see what we can do this time around, but certainly there's no guarantees anywhere you go, but especially not here at Talladega. So it's hard to really say much other than just go out on the racetrack and do it and see what happens.
All right, we'll open up with questionings with Ed. Go ahead, Ed.
Ed Hinton, ESPN.com. You won the spring race here. Boyer's won the last 2 fall races. When everybody talks about the Talladega Scramble, the great fear going in is it's going to scramble the top guys down. Now here's Boyer sitting here sort of in perfect position to take advantage of the Talladega Scramble. Are you concerned about those guys sitting right behind you, top 3, that this could be hairy for you top 3, and that this could scramble things around a bit?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Concern's a strong word. I'm open-minded that anything can happen here. For good or bad, we could very well leave here with a bigger points lead, as well as we could leave here with losing it and being, quite a few markers back. So I'm very open-minded to how that could go. And I'm going to just focus on controlling what I can control, which isn't a lot, but I still have some control to try to be the guy that doesn't put himself in a bad situation and then looks back at it that way. But a lot of things can change here. It's a lot of things can change every week. But the difference is, here you have a little less control, but you still have some control. And so you talk in circles in a way, I know, but that's the truth of the matter. It's a difficult situation, but I'm not going to look at it negatively. I'm going to look at it positively and think that if I do everything right, there's a chance I could leave here and have a really big points lead.
That's the thing. You seem to come in here, rather a lot of drivers come in, we got to survive Talladega. We just got to get out of here. You and Boyer both seem to come in here with, you're having a pretty good time, are you? I mean, do you think you got a...
That's good. I don't know a better place to be than in the points lead. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't want to be there.
But I mean, at this place, though, you seem to say, hey, this place is wild. That's great. Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a challenge, and I like the challenge that Talladega is.
All right, let's go to... All right, Marty just left. Oh, you're good? Okay, can you go ahead? Go ahead.
I'm getting ready to leave. Marty Smith, ESPN. If racing is controlled chaos, what is racing at Talladega?
Oh, you're looking for a really good one-liner.
Be philosophical. Hook me up.
I mean, I could have used a little warning on this. If racing is chaos, what is Talladega? Less controlled chaos. I don't know. It's just to another level. I think the key thing is that you may have less control of your destiny here, but you still can do something dumb and make it worse than it has to be. You don't need to drive it in the wall on yourself and say it's luck. And I know that there's a temptation for some to use that excuse as an end-all be-all, it's Talladega, it's, bad luck. And a lot of times it's not bad luck. A lot of times it's just guys covering their ass with blaming Talladega too. So, it's funny how that works sometimes.
All right, let's go to Mark and David. Go ahead, both of you. Who wants to go first?
Tandem? No, first question then, Brad. Mark Allman, NASCAR.com. A lot of guys have talked about coming in here and doing as little practice as possible to sort of protect the car because it's worked on so much, almost like a glorified leak check test. What are you guys planning on doing with the practices?
We'll practice, I'm not going to say a lot, but a fair amount, especially in the first one, and kind of reevaluate where we're at from there and see if there's a reason to keep going, and if there is, we will, and if not, we'll call it a day and start drinking some beer.
David Caravella, NASCAR.com. Brad, what made you think the move you made here to win the race in the spring would work?
What made me think it would work? Common sense. how do you say it? Common sense is a set of prejudice in turn. How do you say it? Acquired from birth. And for me, looking backwards at that move, since it's already happened, it's obvious to say now that it worked and it would work. But trying to look at it from where I was at in that position, I just had this intuition of how Kyle would react just from experience around him, and how the actual air would work just in theory, and the two combined together. Obviously, it happened. I don't know. Maybe I could make that same move 5 times in a row, and that was the only time it worked. It's hard to say. I would feel fortunate if I got the opportunity to make that move 5 times, because there is no guarantee it'll work the next time.
How much of that was planned and how much of that was just reaction?
Well, you can't plan being in the lead at the final lap, obviously. You can only hope that you get the opportunity, and when you do, that you are prepared for it.
All right, let's go Woody, Lee, and then Monty.
Woody came with MRN over by the podium, Brad. You mentioned earlier this week about not really worrying about having plans coming in here because you might have to throw them out the window anyway, or it might not work. But yet,
Absolutely.
You had said you envisioned that last move beforehand. I mean, are there certain situations where you get in a race like this, and if A happens, then B, or is it just completely feel it out as you go along?
Well, I think there's a difference between being prepared and having a plan. I'm not going to dive into that. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But you try to prepare for everything, and in some ways at Talladega you just shoot from the hip from there.
All right, go ahead, Lee.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. You've won this race under 2 very different types of rules packages. Do you just feel, did you not feel as comfortable under tandem drafting as you do being able to kind of select your own destiny and the outcome of this race? I mean,
Sure.
If nobody else gets in your way or screws around with you, but I mean, it seems, your success has been without tandem drafting in the short time you've been here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I never raced in the era where it was just pure pack racing. So I don't know how I would have ran at that time. Not in Cup, at least. I did a little bit in Nationwide. So I don't know how I would or would not have been successful. I feel like there was obviously that era of the last 2 to 3 years of pure tandem racing. Maybe it's more like 2 years, 1 to 2 years. But right now I think we're a little bit of a hybrid between the two. And that seems to be where I'm the most successful. That doesn't mean that those around me haven't learned and picked up on how to, execute it to where they'll have a move that I haven't thought of to defeat me. So, I think first thing first, you have to be in position to use those moves, and that means you're not wrecked and you're in the front pairing, front groups, whatever you want to call it. And those are just a matter of fortune. So it's hard to explain why I'm more successful with the hybrid style than the tandem style. I think some of it is probably just a little bit of fortune.
All right, let's go Tom, Shannon, Claire, and then up front to Roger. Go ahead, Tom. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Monty, and then Tom. Excuse me.
I see you, Monty.
You ought to try to get one of the lower casts in occasionally. Monty Dutton, Gaston Gazette. Brad, there have been a lot of places where you have won at races where you hadn't previously done well. But in your case, the statistics are kind of barren because you're in your 3rd year at the Cup level, and in one of those years you had a really rough year.
Sure.
So do you think when you go to these tracks where you maybe have a best finish of 12th or something like that, do you feel, like if you'd been here for 15 years and you had that performance, it would be one thing. But in your own mind, do you feel more upbeat when you go to those places just because you don't think there's been enough of a sample there to really show, or maybe it's the car's performance, that type of thing?
That's exactly how I feel, and I think I said some comments to that effect after Dover. If you're trying to compare me against Denny Hamlin and Jimmy Johnson, that's not going to work because I haven't been in the sport 11 years, or at least not at the Cup level. So your pool of stats to work from is, you can't compare them. And certainly I haven't had the opportunities with the team that I have right now in the past. So, basically you can take the stat book and tear it up as far as I'm concerned when trying to think of the two-car and how we're going to perform after the final events of the year.
Go ahead, Tom.
Brad, Tom Jensen, Speed.com. 7 races left in the chase. You're leading the points. You obviously want to be there leading the points after Homestead. What has to happen on Sunday this week for you to be in a position to win the championship?
It's hard to answer. I think that we can go to any of the next 7 races, obviously including here at Talladega, and win. Certainly there's variables in there that could possibly put us out of it. You could blow a tire, get caught up in a wreck, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I can't look that far into the future. I feel like we'll be in really great shape if we retain the points lead leaving here at Talladega. That's for sure. This will be a big moment for our team if we can do that. But even if we're not, I would not be all that concerned.
Great. Go to Shannon. Go ahead, Shannon.
Shannon Spake, ESPN. Brad, I'm just wondering, one of the things that makes Talladega so unique is the position of the start-finish line. When you look at some of the dramatic finishes that not only yourself have been involved in, but just overall, how do you think the position of that compared to maybe Daytona plays into what we see on the racetrack?
It's definitely unique, but I really like it. I like how some tracks are different and have their own characteristics and flow to them, and Talladega certainly has always had that. As far as how the start-finish line affects the race being located where it's at, I don't really think it does, because you just time your moves a little bit later. Instead of making your move directly off of 4, you maybe wait till the short shoot in the tri-oval. But I like the ability that you have here at Talladega for the fans to be able to see the race come to conclusion a little bit further down the track, so more fans get to see it. I think that's great. I think that was a great idea that maybe more tracks should think of.
All right, go to Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I'm not talking about the tandem draft. I'm just talking about pack racing. Can someone like you that feels they need to be up front and that's where you run best, as opposed to someone else who has another plan, change the pace of the race where you think others will either be forced to or move earlier or differently because you're kind of shaking up what maybe the whole group thought they were going to do?
Well, I think you look at it, and since you can't break away from the pack or the tandems or a combination of both, a lot of your driving style here is based off of reaction. And certainly if somebody comes up there and starts driving like an a-hole, you're going to have to do something different and get away from them. And that does happen. So it's hard to pick a strategy for that reason, because if the guys that are out of control are deciding to ride in the back, there's as much of a possibility that you get wrecked that way as there is if you're in the front. So yeah, you do a lot of reactive driving, and you're quite a bit less assertive in some ways here at Talladega. So yes, I mean the field can definitely change its flow, almost like a school of fish, and you have to turn with it.
And then, go ahead, Reed.
Reed Spencer with the NASCAR Wire Service. Even though you won't see a lot of the tandem racing on Sunday, is it just as important to have allies out there? Is that an issue at all, because Sam and you are the only 2 Dodge drivers out there, and is it harder for you to make friends on the track because you are the points leader?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I'll be glad to have Sam's help, that's for sure, and I know that he's been a good teammate. I'm looking forward to working with him. I think we've worked pretty well together this year, whether it's nationwide or Cup. But as far as the other drivers, I go into the race not expecting to have any help from anyone, and playing it from there.
All right. Go ahead, Roger.
Roger Holtzclaw, SpeedwayMedia.com. Considering that you're running as well as you are this season, you're tied for the most wins on the tour this year. You're leading the points right now. Does it make you a little nervous to know that 7 races from now you'll be driving a different manufacturer?
I wouldn't say nervous. You know, I look at the sport, and it's a constant evolution. And even though Dodge has done a great job this year, there's no guarantees that even if they were involved next year that their car would be the best or the worst. You don't know. And I think it's the wrong way to look at it based off of past history. Now, certainly Chevrolet has ran well for a number of years. And there's something to be said for that. But to my gut, I look at things such as how committed a manufacturer is to keeping up with that evolution, and that's what I look towards the future. I don't look towards the present to predict future performance. I like what I see out of Ford and how they plan on evolving through the next, few years, foreseeable future, I should say. And I'm confident that even if things don't jump out of the gate in 2013 at the performance level that they have ended 2012, that they can get there, if not better.
All right. Okay. We'll end with Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Since we're on that topic, Brad, does the fact that you're switching to a new team next year in a year when everybody's going to all new cars, is that more of an equalizer, making a manufacturer change than it might have been in another year?
It's a huge equalizer. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have picked a better time, period, to switch manufacturers. You're looking at a complete overhaul of all the bodies on the cars, which is really one of the biggest expenditures we have. Obviously, the engine side is another expenditure, and that's not going to be easy. I'm confident that that'll work its way out. Roger assures me of that, and so does everybody else at Penske Racing. But from the standpoint of the actual cars, per se, without the engines, you're looking at a whole field of scrapped race cars, or at the very least cut up race cars, to where any aero notes or any of those things that you had in the past, which you really have a lot of time in, are really not valuable anymore. They're out to date and not useful. So I think that there's never been a better time to make that switch. Certainly there's never really a good time, but it doesn't get any better than this time period.
All right. Thank you, Brad.
All right. Thank you, guys.